All right, welcome back everybody to Dr. Dave Regis's video version that I'm doing of his openings book. Interesting, openings book for new players. And so far we've looked at the possibilities here after knight c6, early d4, early bishop c4. Very, very nice. And we've looked at the Petrov defense, knight f6, and again, early d4, same thing. What we're going to look at in the next few videos is some different possibilities for black, some pawn moves that black can play instead of knight moves. And today's one isn't completely sound. It's actually an opening that white doesn't need to be afraid of, but should be respectful of and should know what to do against, just in case it's sprung on them in a tournament. And it's this move, the Elephant Gambit. So instead of white playing the early d-pawn advance, in the Elephant Gambit, black does it. But of course, black is a move behind. And so that means it's not perhaps as dangerous a move for black as it would be for white. Not to say it's not without its sting. The bishops can get out early now, plenty of black space in the center. But if white knows what they're doing, they're going to come out on top of this. In this opening, there is a reason why top-level grandmasters don't play it in serious tournaments. And I've just let the computer run. You can see it's already decided it's over +1 for white. So let's see how this gets dealt with in 6 short-ish games. And the first one's between players called Dürkstein and Schuster from 1960. So here we go. So white to move in this position plays e takes d5, which is the best move. e4 from black. Do you remember when we were doing it the other way around, white would often attack from that square against a knight on f6. Black's doing the same thing. And we'd often have the queen go to e7 in the other openings. White's doing the same thing. So it's an indirect defense. You can't play pawn takes knight because of the pin. Queen takes king obviously is a bit strong. So black defends their pawn and white attacks it again. That's what we should do to pinned pieces. We attack them. And black plays bishop to b4 with check, which is just a strange choice, really. The computer doesn't really like it. +2.5 now, look. Simply because we can just block, check, and attack the bishop. But there may be that black was setting a bit of a trap, because if we go castles and then collect the bishop, watch the bar suddenly drop down, and I'll show you why. Because now after e takes f3, white's got their king stuck in the middle of the board, and it just gets a little bit hairy. So queen takes, I think the right move is knight takes, so it might be rook e8 straight away. Yeah, knight takes first. I'm just going with the computer because I don't know the Elephant Gambit that well. And, you know, you're attacking here, so you're likely to get another pawn back. You've got this horrible, this horrible possibility coming down the middle of the board. You probably need to just play bishop to e2, allow this to be taken, and then perhaps get castled, I should think. But now you've got 6 pawns each. White's got an isolated pawn, and black's very happy with life. So the thing with the Elephant Gambit is it's a tricky opening. It's very, very tricky. But if you make the right moves, you won't go far wrong. So we got as far as c3, and we said black castle, but white doesn't fall for this whole business of playing pawn takes pawn. White just does the correct move, which is here. And sorry, let's just turn the analysis back off again. And bishop to c5 from black, because he's now got to save his bishop, because this little trick has all disappeared. And you can see now white's absolutely fine here. Bishop to g5 to pin the knight. A rook to e8. So black's trying to line things up on the center of the board. Look. Knight b to d2 to defend this pawn. And then an odd bishop e7, presumably because black wants to break the pin. But now this bishop's moved several times in the opening, and we're only sort of 9 moves in. Bishop takes and bishop takes. And queen to d3, so getting off of this line and giving a chance for the bishop to move. And white's also got an eye on castling queenside anyway. Knight to d7 is played by black. Bishop to e2 as predicted from white. Knight to c5 to attack the queen, who retreats. Queen to e7. And white gets the king out of dodge, out of the middle of the board. And to be perfectly honest, at this point, white's just a pretty comfortable 2 extra pawns up with a nice position, and the computer's saying basically +2. But we will finish the game for the sake of completeness. So bishop to d7, rook h to e1, and just think a few moves ago it was a white king on this square lined up against the two black pieces. Now the most valuable piece on that line is the queen lined up potentially facing a rook. So on with the game. Knight to a5 from black, knight to d4 from white, bishop takes and pawn takes, and now knight to e4. Black decides that he wants to get back one of these two pawns that he's down, but unfortunately this move walks into what we said a minute ago about the dangers of having the rook and queen on the same line, and white plays bishop to d3, and black resigns because basically this knight is going to die. You can't move it because of rook takes queen. And if you try to support it with this move, well, then f3. And again, you can't move the knight. What are you going to do? Takes. It's just no good. So yeah, in that version of the Elephant Gamble, that game with it, white deals with things very, very comfortably. We'll have a look at the next game now. These two players called Toth and Costa. T-O-T-H, Toth, I suppose that is, and Costa from 1999. So e4, e5, knight to f3 and d5. And again, e takes d5. And this time black tries c6. So can you remember that in the openings we've seen, white's doing this, but it's different. For black to do it is difficult because black is always the move behind. So white goes ahead and accepts, and then b takes, which is odd because you'd have thought that knight takes would have been the most natural move, but b takes c6. White just keeps developing, and the computer's already saying +2. So nothing to be afraid of. Knight to f6, bishop to c4, e4, queen to e2. So as last time, attack the knight, but pin the pawn so that it can't take. Bishop to g4, which is an okay idea, pinning the knight. Excuse me. But knight takes because there's plenty of protection on that square. Dr. Dave has written here, black has made some odd choices, but the next move is more than daft. Well, bishop takes knight, and if you want to pause and work out what white's next move is and why bishop takes f3 was more than daft, feel free to hit pause. I will carry on with the next move in 3, 2, 1. It's because that's checkmate. So it's check from the knight and also check from the queen. So you can't take either of the two pieces because that would leave the other check. Obviously, the queen's guarding that square and the knight is guarding that one. So it's checkmate on the ninth move. So yeah, not a good day there for the Elephant Gambit in that one. Okay, let's try the next game. And we've got a game from an under-16s tournament in 1997, Wortel against Van Veen in a place called Hengelo. So no idea. Yeah, he's quite incredible at finding these games. It's Dr. Dave. I assume he's got a big database somewhere, but some good research. And d5, and by now you should know ed5 is the best way to deal with the Elephant Gambit. e4, queen e2. Knight f6, d3, back to what we were looking at with the first game. We've got bishop b4 again, c3. Remember, after castles, don't fall for pawn takes bishop, which isn't good. The correct move is d takes e4. And this time, in the previous game, the bishop went there. This time back to a5. It's got to go because there's now none of this tricky stuff on this square. But you can see from the bar that white's got nothing whatsoever to worry about. Bishop to g5, pinning the knight, perfectly reasonable and natural. Rook to e8, knight to b to d2, h6 to kick the bishop. Bishop takes, queen takes. You're not going to go with the pawn because it'll just leave you with pawns here, and that's horrible. White plays one more move, and then black resigns. So actually, on reflection, pawn takes probably was better. But what does white play here? Again, feel free to press pause. I'll carry on in 3, 2, 1. And the correct move is, of course, here. two hanging or two unprotected pieces. So one of them has to hang, as we say in chess, as in when you can't defend a piece, it's hanging, or if it's been left undefended. So yeah, just go back a couple of moves. I wonder if the computer says you do have to take with the pawn. Yeah, because of what I've just showed you, but this is just vile. It's still +4 to +5 for white, and look at the state of the black king, and black's 2 pawns down as well. It's just horrible. So I hope by now we're aware of what to do with the Elephant Gambit. If an opponent plays it against you, we've got 3 more games to go through. Where are we here? We're playing 1999 from Miskolc. Goodness knows where that is. I really don't know where that one is. But the players are called Boer and Conch. And e4, e5, knight to f3, d5. This time white goes with knight to e5, which is perfectly okay. It's the computer's second choice. Not as strong as ed5, but knight to takes is okay. Bishop to d6, hitting the knight. And white plays d4 to defend. c5 from black. So we've got, oh my goodness, all kinds of tension and fun and games in the middle of the board here now. Lots and lots of tactical possibilities. Bishop to b5 from white. Bishop to d7. Knight takes. Knight takes. Pawn takes here. And then black plays queen to a5, which Dr. Dave gives a question mark. It looks like it's a fork, doesn't it? It looks like queen checks and then picks up the bishop. But of course, knight to c3 defends. And bishop e5, black is keen to attack, says Dr. Dave's comments. But unfortunately, the whole plan is a disaster. Brilliantly phrased. So white plays bishop takes with check. So that forces black to act. King takes d7 and queen takes d5 is check. And you're going to win the bishop because you can't do anything to save it. Well, I mean, you could put it there, but queen takes obviously is going to win. So black actually in the real game tried something else, didn't play king takes bishop. Black actually played king here, but queen takes d5 is still fantastic. Check, takes, check. Bishop to d2, watch for this, white's going to sacrifice some pieces. Queen takes rook, check. Queen here, sorry, king to e2, brings back the queen. Okay, queen takes h1, you're just going to get checkmated. You can't do that. Sorry, I just lost my spot in the book. Bishop to g5, ouch. The queen's protecting the bishop, and this just lines up a skewer. So queen takes, and then not queen takes queen, which is probably winning as well, but queen to d6, king to d8, bishop to c6, check here. And black has to resign. The only legal move is here, followed by here. Only legal move is here, followed by here. And if, by the way, we go back to where black plays queen to f6, if instead this, I believe exactly the same sequence, check, has to go here, check, has to go here, check, has to go here, and takes. So, ouch. Yeah. Not going so well for black in the Elephant Gambit as of yet. 2 more games, and then we can leave this one here. So we've got Kotronias versus Pandavos from Peristeri, and it doesn't say if this is an age group or anything. It just says round 10, 1993. All right, let's see how the game goes. So here we go. E4, E5, knight to F3, D5. And we're back to e takes d5, e4, queen e2, knight f6, all stuff by now that you'll recognize, d3, and this time bishop e7. So the pawn's no longer pinned, but of course, white can now just take it. And to be perfectly honest, look, white's just two pawns up in the middle of the board. As long as he can untangle this bishop and somehow get castle, white's just winning here. And the computer's saying +2, excuse me. So let's see how the game progresses. Castles from black, development from white, knight to c3, rook to e8. Again, it's a bit, oops, excuse me, it's a bit sort of desperate, isn't it? But lining this up. Bishop to d2. Okay, fine. So white now has the option of running the king that way at some point. b5 is an interesting idea. It's not good, but I guess the idea is to discourage white from castling this side in case this pawn manages to do some damage. White's not scared. Queen takes. Knight to a6 from black. It is protected over there. So knight to a6 was played. Knight to d4 from white. Knight takes pawn. I mean, black's just trying everything to make the position complicated here, but it just isn't going to work. Bishop here. Remember, you can't play knight takes now because once again, the rook is lined up to the king, so it's pinned. But knight to e6 is a clever way to solve the problem. Pawn takes, and now the rook is blocked. Now we can play knight takes bishop with check. Pawn takes, and white finally castles, and the position is just losing. It's +4. White is absolutely fine. Pawn takes, okay. Bishop to c3. Let's start pointing things in the direction of the enemy. King, c5, and black actually immediately resigns straight after this move. Lots of options here. Dr. Dave in the book gives queen to c6, which attacks just everything. Attacks a8, kind of attacks ace. I've done it twice. Kind of attacks a6. It's good grief. Let's try again. Kind of attacks a6, although obviously that piece is defended. Does attack here. And does attack here. So pretty unpleasant. I wonder if there's a better move than that. Let's just pop the computer on. What should we play here? So queen c6 is +7, and the computer actually says you can play here. I guess that's because if queen takes, you've then got the rather unpleasant, well, you can actually play queen e8 first. I was going to say bishop c4, which is +11, but actually you could just do this first, can't you? Which is brutal, mate in 6. So another bad day at the office for the Elephant Gambit. And so we'll go to the analysis board one more time. We've got one more game, and then we'll let the Elephant Gambit rest, because as you can see, if white knows what they're doing, they're going to be fine. So d5, we get e takes d5 again, e4, and this time instead of queen e2, white tries something else. Oh, I'll turn those off. White tries the computer's second choice move. It's not as good as queen e2, but knight e5 is good enough. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that now it's pretty equal, whereas queen e2 was advantage white. Black plays knight to f6, bishop to b5 check from white, knight to b to d7, blocking the check, knight to c3, and bishop to d6, so kicking away the knight, or at least making it make a decision. And white chooses to defend. Black goes with en passant, which if you don't know what that is, look up, but it's not cheating, I promise you. It's a special ambush move. There is a video in my playlist of lessons for beginners that explains en passant. I've lost my place now. Yeah, knight takes d7 is played, bishop takes d7 is played, bishop takes, so a big liquidation of pieces, queen takes d3. And really what we see here is white just a pawn up, but the computer says it's still playable for black. It's, you know, plus 0.6. Yeah, okay. It's not a complete disaster. Black castles queenside. White will shortly castle as well, but bishop to e3 first. Queen to g4 is played. That stops white castling queenside because you can't castle through check, or at least for the moment it does. And white plays a move that looks on the face of it really dangerous, just castles straight into where all these pieces are pointing. So yeah, computer's not overly thrilled with that, but still says advantage white. You could see that it just dropped a little bit. So castles, bishop e5 is played by black, h3 by white, not surprisingly wants the queen to go away, queen h5. Bishop to d4, white is still very keen in this game on swapping pieces. Knight d5, bishop e5, queen e5, rook f to e1 attacking the queen, queen to d6, and queen to f5 check, queen to d7, which looks okay, but there is now a problem. And there's a tactical problem. And if you want to hit pause at this point and try to find what move white plays here, feel free. I will carry on the video in 3, 2, 1. And the correct move for white is to play knight takes knight. Because although it looks like you can play queen takes queen, what actually happens is the knight comes in here with check. And then when the black king moves, you play knight takes queen. So even in a game where white has played not the best option, if I just put the lines up, you'll see it'll tell you queen e2 is much the better move, even the second best move. White was perfectly okay. No big issues. So that's the Elephant Gambit. Nothing much there to worry about if you're playing white against the Elephant Gambit. Just remember, queen e2, pin the pawn, and d3, hit the pawn. And what you mustn't do is after this, 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 and this, do not take there, because you will get into a bit of trouble. But that's pretty much the only trick that black's got in this opening. If white is sensible, you're just going to be fine. Okay, sorry about that, fans of the Elephant Gambit. As you can tell, I just don't think it's very good. What gave it away? I'll be back soon with another risky unsound gambit, but this time it's one that I actually quite like and I used to play myself as a junior player. So yeah, well, we all have our cross to bear. See you all next time. Thanks.